Sometimes when I'm standing in front of some houses that look good, they're priced fairly, and my clients are excited about them, but sometimes I still tell my clients to slow down. Not because the house is bad, but because the risks are misunderstood. As long as you understand the risk when getting into certain properties, then I'm comfortable with you proceeding. But otherwise, you need to understand the risk. In Toronto, some homes look perfectly fine on the surface, but once you understand what sits behind the walls, the long-term costs and stress can be much higher than buyers expect. So today I want to walk you through few types of property where I usually tell my clients to pause, ask more questions, or sometimes even walk away, and I'll explain why. Buying in Toronto is not easy. Prices are high, inventory comes and goes, and when something finally feels affordable, there's a lot of pressure to move quickly. Especially now that prices have gone down relatively to last couple of years and some properties sit on the market, some clients, when they see properties sitting on the market, they'll like to pounce on them and go for it because this never happened before. And I get that. I see it every week. But after working with first-time buyers, move-up buyers, and investors for years, I've noticed patterns. These aren't rare situations, they do repeat. And most regrets in real estate doesn't come from prices, it comes from surprises after. Okay, let's talk about these properties. Type 1, very old homes with original systems. Toronto has a lot of older homes, and I actually like many of them. They do have a lot of characters. High ceilings, solid layouts, all good things that you ask for a house. But where I get cautious is when a home was built before the 1940s or 50s and hasn't had proper system upgrades. I'm talking about things buyers don't see on a showing. Electrical that isn't properly grounded, or old electrical systems such as knob and tube and sometimes even aluminum electrical system. Plumbing that's near the end of its lifespan. I've seen old plumbing and drainage system that made up of clay and it's been cracked all over the place over time. Foundations that were never designed for model loads. Back in the day, they used to concrete block foundations. Now they tend to bring up a lot of issues, and if it's not waterproof, it could give you some headaches down the line. And sometimes materials that are simply outdated for today's standard. Here is what I tell clients. Even if the kitchen looks new, even if the floors look great, the expensive part of a house is what's behind the walls. I've seen buyers spend tens of thousands after closing, not to improve the home, but just to make it safe and insurable. You need to consider insurance as well. Some of these older homes are not even insurable. Let's talk about type 2. Type 2 are homes in known flood or water risk area. This one surprised a lot of buyers. Toronto doesn't feel like a flood city, but certain pockets absolutely deal with water issue. Basement flooding, overloaded sewer systems, and poor grading. And once a property has a history, insurance becomes more expensive and also coverage can also be limited and resale becomes much harder. The thing is that I remind my client is just because a house hasn't flooded yet doesn't mean it won't. Toronto has a long history with flooding, especially near ravines, creeks, and low-lying pockets. Areas near the Don River, Humber River, and parts of Scarborough and Etobicoke have seen repeated flood events over the years. I always tell buyers, don't rely on stories like the seller saying, oh yeah, it's never flooded. Look at flood maps, municipal data, and the home's elevation relative to the surrounding properties. This is one of the risks that can quietly follow you for years. Weather patterns have changed, we're getting a lot more heavy rainfalls, and some other infrastructures wasn't designed for what we're seeing today. You can also look at the house that has some floor prevention measures, right? Like such as if there has been a backup water valve installed that will help prevent an overflow from city's drainage system into the basements. That's a big one. These are the things you need to look at when looking at the properties. It also makes sense to walk around the property and see how the grade around the house is being installed. If you see is grade coming towards the house, then you know that there's gonna be an issue. Okay, let's talk about type 3, homes with legacy mechanical or material issue. In Toronto, this often comes up with older wiring types, outdated plumbing, materials, or heating systems that are near failure. There are some homes with underground oil tanks that would cause some environmental risks as well. Some older Toronto homes, especially those built in mid-century, were originally heated with oil. Even if the tank was decommissioned, that doesn't always mean it was removed properly, right? Sometimes sellers say something was decommissioned years ago or inspected a long time back, but that doesn't mean that it's been done properly, right? So it's important to pay attention. That's, you gotta pay attention and you gotta slow down, because the replacement or remediation cost can be significant, especially if there is any soil contamination. So it's important to pay attention to this topic for sure. Number 4 is poorly executed flip homes. I see it all the time. This is a big one right now. You walk into a house, it looks great on Instagram, fresh paint, trendy kitchen, new floors, but when you look closer, you notice shortcuts happening, uneven finishes, cheap fixtures not done properly, old mechanicals still untouched, and you can tell a rushed flip usually focuses on what photographs well, but not what actually lasts, right? A flip is not automatically bad. Some are done properly, but you gotta have the eye to understand which flips are good. Some renovations are cosmetic instead of structural. Buyers often pay for it later if it's only cosmetic. So it's important to look closely when you see these flip projects, because majority of them are done for profits and they were rushed to do it, and you can't see what's below the wall. So again, once you see the workmanship that is not there and the job and some of the finishing that is not done properly, you know for sure behind the wall, such as the electrical, plumbing, and mechanical, is not done properly either. Okay, number 5 is over customized home. So the last one is homes that are too personalized, highly specific layouts, ultra niche design choices, very high-end features that don't match the neighborhood. They can look impressive, but resales become tricky. What works perfectly for one buyer can be unusable for the next. In Toronto, long-term value usually comes from flexibility, not uniqueness. You gotta be able to be flexible. The home's gotta match a lot of people, right? We had an issue with one property that had 3 bedrooms, and then the previous owners changed the 3rd bedroom to the extra washroom. It was nice, don't get me wrong, a massive washroom, but they took out 1 bedroom and then made it to a customized washroom or bathroom for themselves with just some weird features. When we wanted to sell this property, everyone was looking for 3 bedroom in that area, and we had a very hard time selling it because it was over customized and it was only 2 bedroom, and so because it was customized to the previous owner's needs. So when it's time to sell, buyers mentally price in the cost of undoing those customization, and that can mean fewer offers, longer days on the market, and essentially ultimately pressure to reduce the price. So just to be clear, I'm not saying never buy these homes. I'm saying understand the risk before you commit, and you can always mitigate these risks. So here's a quick tip that can save you time and money in Toronto. Before even visiting a property, ask for the seller disclosures and listing. That could always help if there is any issue with the property, that they can bring it up to you before even you go see it. So real estate works well when surprises essentially are limited. The goal isn't to avoid buying, it's avoid to regret and high costs of repair after closing. If you understand the trade-offs and plan accordingly, you'll be set.